Good day from Inside Drug Discovery. This video describes a drug, Rhapsido, which was approved by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. This video emphasizes the medicinal chemistry properties of the drug rather than health outcomes in patients. Rhapsido was approved on September 30th, 2025. Rhapsido is approved for the treatment of chronic spontaneous urticaria in adults who do not respond well to treatment with H1 antihistamines. The active pharmaceutical ingredient in Rhapsido is remibrutinib. The drug is administered orally twice per day in a 25 milligram dose. The sponsor for the NDA is Novartis. A link to the prescribing information insert of Rhapsido is shown on this slide, as well as in the video description. The indication for Rhapsido is CSU, chronic spontaneous urticaria, sometimes also called chronic idiopathic urticaria. CSU appears as hives, an intermittent red and itchy rash with no obvious cause. It is triggered by an immune response, an anaphylactic response. A common treatment is the use of H1 antihistamines, such as diphenhydramine or cetirizine. If these treatments are not adequate, then Rhapsido is an option with a completely different mode of action. So remibrutinib, the API in Rhapsido, has a target. It's Bruton's tyrosine kinase, or BTK. Remibrutinib's mechanism is as an inhibitor of BTK. Based on IUPhar's Guide to Pharmacology, the IC50 is 1.0 nanomolar, great potency for a small molecule drug. Through BTK inhibition, mast cells and basophils reduce their release of histamine and other inflammatory compounds, which reduces the incidence of hives and the severity of hives in CSU patients. What is interesting to me is that the target is BTK, which is normally more associated with oncology indications. The IUPhar page for remibrutinib mentions that the improved selectivity and reduced toxicity of remibrutinib allow the compound to be used for non-oncology conditions. Let's take a look. Okay, on top we have ibrutinib, an approved drug for certain lymphomas. We have ibrutinib's potency on BTK, a bit better than remibrutinib. IUPhar's Guide to Pharmacology also lists a number of kinases and receptor kinases for which ibrutinib is an inhibitor. So ibrutinib does have documented evidence of poor selectivity across a spectrum of kinases. Poor selectivity can lead to toxicity. On the bottom, we have remibrutinib. No other kinase activity is specifically listed on the IUPhar site, but I don't know if that is because remibrutinib is a newer compound and less studied. The prescribing information for Rhapsido does mention that remibrutinib does have activity on the TEC and BMX kinases. So apparently, remibrutinib also hits other kinases, though whether it is more selective than ibrutinib is hard to know for certain. I will say that a possible important differences between the two drugs is their dose. Ibrutinib is typically prescribed with a dose of over 400 milligrams twice per day, but remibrutinib is only 40 milligrams twice per day. I'm speculating here, but maybe the lower dose of remibrutinib is largely responsible for the lower toxicity. If anyone knows more about the selectivity and tolerability of remibrutinib, please share what you can in the comments section. Here we have the physicochemical properties of remibrutinib. None of these properties really stand out. The molecular weight is a bit high, but plenty of small molecule drugs have a molecular weight over 500 and are still orally available. I will point out in the structure this alpha beta unsaturated amide group. This is an electrophilic group, a Michael acceptor, and it allows remibrutinib to covalently bind its target to improve its efficacy. We'll talk more about this functionality in a moment. The PK properties are on this slide. I won't highlight much here aside from the short half-life. A driver for half-life is clearance. I find this value of 160 liters per hour hard to interpret. With a little math, we can convert this number to 38 milliliters per minute per kilogram of patient mass, assuming a 70 kilogram patient. A clearance of 38 milliliters per minute per kilogram is quite high and well in excess of hepatic blood flow. This high clearance is often a sign that some other organ or tissue, aside from the liver, is involved in clearing the compound from the plasma. Let's keep this in mind for the next slide. All right, metabolism and excretion. According to the prescribing information, remibrutinib primarily undergoes phase 1 metabolism by CYP3A4. Based on the short half-life, I did expect to see a note about extrahepatic metabolism in the prescribing information. In these alpha-beta unsaturated amide Michael acceptors, you often see the compounds reacting with glutathione, even in the plasma, to form a glutathione conjugate. This type of instability in the plasma can greatly inflate clearance. The prescribing information, however, says nothing about glutathione. Again, I'm speculating and curious, but the role of the prescribing information is not the satisfaction of everyone's curiosity. The metabolites of remibrutinib are mostly excreted in the feces, although some appear in the urine as well. Rhapsido carries some safety concerns. The warnings in the prescribing information are for increased risk of bleeding and potential complications with vaccinations with live attenuated viruses. Adverse reactions observed in at least 3% of patients include colds, bleeding, headache, nausea, and abdominal pain. That concludes this summary of the approval of the new drug application of Rhapsido, which was granted by the U.S. FDA on September 30th of 2025. Rhapsido contains remibrutinib as its API and is approved for the treatment of chronic spontaneous urticaria. Thank you for watching to the end. Your feedback is always welcome. Take care.